This buckler at the Bavarian Army Museum really caught my attention. It's a unique form made probably either in southern Germany or Italy in the late 15th century. It's made of iron covered in red velvet and fitted with a wooden grip covered in leather. I hope you don't mind my quiet museum voice for most of this.
That is a tiny buckler. I've seen small bucklers before, but this one is remarkably small. That is really just a little button there, so I can't really show you because it's behind glass and my hand in the foreground tells you really nothing. Maybe if I put my hand here, you can sort of get it, but perspective is still tricky on that.
Specifically, this buckler is 20.5 centimeters long, or 8 inches, and 14 centimeters wide, or 5.5 inches, to give you a better idea.
It just about covers my hand. It projects past the hand, but not very far. And I do have to say, the spikes on there are very well shaped. You have a number of decorative elements, and it's nice that you can still see a bit of the original color. In fact, quite a bit. It's faded, of course, but that is really quite good. Talhofer has similar bucklers, but larger and not quite as fancy as this one. The way it's shaped is just designed to maximize the chance of catching an opponent's blade. Pretty sure that's what the spikes are for too. It's not so much offensive use, it's more for trapping a blade. And the way it's curved upward, that increases the chance quite a bit of a blade slipping in there, and then you're able to trap it with a twist of the wrist and try to prevent it from being withdrawn.
I should point out that the museum's chief conservator has a different perspective, pointing out how this buckler appears more like a prestige object and doesn't have signs of use. Personally, I disagree with the assumption that the spikes and other attachments are not intended to be used for parrying and trapping, and that the spikes are too small for that. Based on my experience from HEMA practice and sparring, I would be perfectly happy to use this as a defensive tool in the offhand. Yes, some of the spikes are small, but it really doesn't take much to stop a blade and bind it up. Even a simple ridge can do that fairly well. And you don't necessarily need to straight up trap a blade. Anything that prevents it from glancing or slipping off is useful and will help manipulate the opponent's blade, push it aside, etc. The bucklers that Talhofer is showing don't have much larger spikes. The size looks very similar to me. The large, drawn-out, pointed boss would also be excellent for defense, so I'm really leaning more toward a usable item here, even though it really is quite fancy. But who knows, you really can't say for sure. The grip is simple and doesn't look terribly comfortable, but a reproduction of this buckler would be fascinating to experiment with in a hands-on kind of way. This is the most interesting buckler I've seen, although the caged buckler is a close second, which is even more intriguing in terms of practical use. And if that's too small for you, how about moving closer to the opposite end of the spectrum?
So the standing shield here has quite an interesting construction. Apparently there's slag in there as well as glass particles. So in addition to wood, there are a number of other materials. So I guess you could call it a composite shield. And you can kind of get a look at that. With all, you can see the different layers. Glass for reinforcement, I have not heard of that before. That is quite interesting. Makes sense. Of course, I want to take a look at it from the back. That's always the important part with shields that you often don't get to see when it's only a picture. So you have a center grip here. Looks like leather nailed to it. And then there are 2 more attachment points for the strap,
which would be quite handy against death from above during the assault of a castle.
This one obviously doesn't have a handle. Yes, you just put that down as a mobile cover. Let's look at the thickness. And there's another Pavise.
This type of shield had a recognizable shape with a double curvature that forms a raised area in the middle, like a broad ridge. The core was made of wood and covered in multiple layers of different materials. In this case, you can see the leather or rawhide and woven fabric. Parchment or sinew could also be used. And, as mentioned earlier, even slag or glass reinforcements, which I imagine would be quite effective at stopping arrows and crossbow bolts. The face of the shield has Munich's coat of arms painted on it. It's made in 1463 and probably saw use, judging by the repair. A surprisingly crude repair for such a nice shield, might I add. The grip is made of leather-wrapped bull pizzles. If you don't know what that is, don't look it up. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the look at these shields. Keep an eye out for more videos to come. Making sure to be subscribed might help with that, and turning on notifications too. Thanks for watching.